Matalanga is the president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Karibu sana to the show.
Thanks. Good morning, Sam. It's good to be here.
And Engineer Wangai Ndirangu is the chairperson of the Kenya National Highways Authority. Karibu sana to the show.
A very good morning.
Right, and like I told you during the break, I would want to try with something because we in so much conversations about politics in the country. If you look at the two dailies of that we have, the Standard talks about divorce. Uhuru is stuck with deputy. Despite trying all tricks in the political book to get Ruto to exit government, the president finds himself in a difficult space and now has to contend with his second in command. Then on the front page of the Daily Nation, you see Ruto's running mate headache. Just who will the DP pick from vote-rich Mount Kenya? And I'll ask you a question just like Kenyans and professionals in your respective areas. What comes to mind when you're looking at all these political conflicts, the challenges that people have to go through, the conversations around 2022 succession? What would you want to see in 2022?
As a country, I think we are heavily politicized, and we as professionals will want to see a gap between the politics and the election. We cannot have an election and then we start preparing for the next elections. So the country we are wasting a lot of resources, a lot of time concentrating on politics. We like to see a system where the law and order is obeyed. So when you have an election, the people who are elected should be given time to serve the people. And when the election cycle comes, then we give time to politics now. We like to see where the president and the deputy are obeying that and then working together to serve the people. This politicizing every aspect that is happening around is destabilizing the delivery of service of the government to the people. Right.
And Engineer Wangai, so there has been so much talk that we can still do politics and work. How does it work? If you've observed several administrations, if it's since President Moi's tenure, President Kibaki, President Kenyatta's tenure, how does politics affect the delivery of services by government agencies?
I would say that actually this thing of too much politics is unfortunate. And why I say that is because the president had been very clear from the word go that he had an agenda. He has 4 main areas he wanted to deliver. And we're talking too much about what will happen, and we should, but I think we also need to think about the present. I think the country would be focusing and asking how far have we progressed with what we wanted to do to improve lives, to improve socio-economic status, and therefore what remains to be done. And that being the case, whatever conversation would be having is saying this is the far we have come, then we need to build on this in the subsequent years. Because then that diversion of energy to too much politics of what will happen 5 years to come, 3 years to come, then it's not good for us at all.
Okay, all right, and I'll leave it at that because you're professionals and you have work to do here. We are talking about a proposal that is before Parliament, the road sector reforms. And there's an amendment that is being pursued that I would want to look at some of the details that they provide. The proposals are that to enhance the tenure of a Director General to 5 years from the current 3 years, but still renewable, to expand the Director General's qualifications, and the reason is to promote fair competition, diversity of professions. The committee, that is the committee in charge of transport, says that restricting DG to engineering is discriminatory. Let's see something else of the conversation around this. So these are the proposals, that the DG should have a postgraduate degree in engineering or architecture or finance or accounts or management or law or related field from a recognized university. They should have 10 years experience in senior management in road sector. They should be registered by a regulatory body. They should be members or a member of a relevant professional body. But not everyone is agreeing with this because the Institution of Engineers of Kenya are saying that we should include master's degree or higher in a related field. The person being considered for Director General should be a registered professional engineer with the Engineers Board of Kenya. The Institution of Engineers of Kenya. They should also be a member of that. And they should have 15 years of post-registration experience, that is since being registered as an engineer. And they should have experience in highway, road, or transportation engineering. That is keeping it within the engineering profession. Then the stakeholders that appeared before the Parliamentary Committee on Transport include ISPAC, Kenya Institute of Supplies Management, Institute of HR Management, Institute of Engineers of Kenya, Institution of Engineers of Kenya, AG's Office, and the Department of Justice, Kenya Roads Board, the State Department of Infrastructure, and Okia Omtata. Then the affected agencies would be the Kenya Roads Board, the Kenya National Highways Authority, that is KENHA, Kenya Rural Roads Authority, there's a bit of misspelling there, Kenya Urban Roads Authority, that is KURA. These are the agencies that would be affected by those changes. And let me begin with you, Engineer Matalanga. I mean, if the desire by the committee is to widen the scope of Director General so that you can tap to different professions, what is wrong with that, and why would you want to retain it within those that are engineers?
Thank you very much, Sam, for that and for that brief. You know, there should be no desire by the committee, because the committee is supposed to do the right thing. So the committee's work is supposed to be to listen to people and then put legislation in place that is well guided, that is going to serve this country. So we are worried that the push by the committee, we don't know where their push is coming from, because they are supposed to be putting legislation in place that is guided by the principle. You know, these state authorities, they provide a service to the people. And we need to understand where we have come from, why the existing law was put in place. Initially, the operations of the road authorities used to be under the Chief Engineer Roads before the reforms that were done in early in 2000. Mm-hmm. These reforms were informed by the need to improve delivery of service to the people. This work that the authorities are doing mm-hmm. used to be domiciled under the Chief Engineer Roads, but there was a feeling that there is so much work, and therefore we needed to decentralize mm-hmm. and devolve them. That's why the authorities were formed. Right. The first was to put in place the fuel maintenance levy, and the Kenya Roads Board was formed to look after this fund. Part of the work of Kenya Roads Board is actually to carry out audits to mm-hmm. ensure that this money from the fuel levy fund is used properly. Right. Then later, the Kenya National Highways Authority was also formed to look after national highways. Mm-hmm. And then the Kenya Urban Roads Authority is supposed to look after the urban roads. And then there is Kenya Rural Roads Authority, which is supposed to look after rural roads. Mm-hmm. So you can see that these functions were actually done by the Chief Engineer Roads, and the performance of engineering duties in Kenya is regulated. There was also put in place a regulatory authority, Engineers Board of Kenya, which mm-hmm. then regulates all the engineering education, engineering and practice, and, right. and the progression of that practice, to ensure, just like when you are sick, you go to a doctor, mm-hmm. you want to know that the doctor is actually regulated and is not going to give you the wrong diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So when you go before an engineer, you also want to be sure, the public, that this is an engineer that is going to give you a service. You have seen recently the case of collapsing buildings, unfortunately, in Kiambu. Right. And we're very lucky that the governor is up to it, and he's saying, oh, I need professionals to help me to bring to a stop this one. He's not going to someone who cannot give you that service. So the work of engineering in Kenya is regulated, and that's why we are telling the committee that the key requirement for service in these agencies is engineering. So you cannot be presiding over an institution when right. you don't have the key competency. That's why we are telling the committee.
And Engineer Wangai, what is your persuasion? What is the right thing to do for a position that, yes, in as much as you need engineering skills, you also need quite a bit of management, if it's public finance management skills, and also basic human resource management skills. What do you think is the best way around this?
Very many thanks, Sam. And I think we need to understand this conversation mm-hmm. in the light, and I like the topic that we have here. It's about the road sector reforms. And so we need to go back 10 years and ask ourselves why. That, and this is not just about the road sector, but across the many public sectors where we had the ministry dealing with the policy issues, and then have a regulatory body, and then have another set of agencies that are dealing with implementation. And Kenya, Kura, and Kera are in the space of implementers. And therefore, the lead in the space need to be somebody who understands the implementation. But let me first of all say this, that Parliament is within its mandate and space to actually, deliberate and the legislative proposals that are before it. And it's within the right of everybody to canvass for what they perceive is best. And it's within the minister's realm to also provide policy direction. And I think two things first, right, that in terms of this term, the Cabinet Secretary pronounced himself pretty well that that perhaps there is merit, and I think many people, there's almost convergence, that there is merit in extending the term from 3 to 5 years. But as to who is the head, what's the qualification of the head of this institution, let's look at it in this manner. The bulk of the work that is done by the Director General is to build roads, is to maintain roads. In fact, when I go out across the country, the concerns people are asking me is, why is there a pothole here? Why are we having road safety issues? The person then needs to understand and therefore provide to the lead to the team. The bulk of the staff, for example, I have in Kenya, 70% are technical people. I believe that even among people with engineering qualification, we can find people who also have sufficient management and leadership skill. And so having people who twin the two, I think it's a good thing, and I think it's the best thing for the organization. And this is evidenced by the fact that when you look at what has been performed by these authorities over the last 10 years they have been in existence, I think I would say it's a very good job. So I think that's, for me, it's proof enough that the engineer managers can do it.
All right, and because some of the quotations because there's a report that has been presented to the House by the Department or Committee, I don't know what the status is now, but part of that provides what work the Director General is supposed to perform, including implementation of the policies and programs of the authority and reporting thereon to the board, proper management of funds, organization and control of the staff of the authority, development of an operations plan for achieving the authority's objectives, cooperation with other lead agencies and organizations in the road sector. Well, something else here, the implementation and fulfillment of the policies and agreed objectives. So if you look at it, it sounds more of a managerial role. So how do you, yes, guard the profession of engineering to be the ones that are leading these boards, but at the same time, how do they acquire all these, what would appear to be pretty managerial skills?
Sam, thank you very much. Yes, it is. You might say it is managerial, but you know, the public sometimes, Wanjiku doesn't understand what engineering is about. But people understand maybe law and medicine, and that's why we always keep going back to this example. The work of the registrar of the High Court, you might say it is managerial. But why must that person have a law degree? And we engineers are not saying we want to be registrar of the High Court, because we know that that's a professional position, that the person must be a professional. And from our point of view, we are saying we're not just pushing only for engineers to be DGs of road authorities. We are saying that you have to be a professional in the key competency of that authority. You know, the road authorities carry out their own designs, and they approve these designs without reference to any other person. And the person carrying out the final approval is the head of this authority. As I said earlier, the proper title should actually be, for Kenya, it should have been Chief Engineer, National Highways. For Kera, it should have been Chief Engineer, Rural Roads. And for Kura, it should have been Chief Engineer, Urban Roads. So because the work is doing, and the key functions of these authorities are to implement the policy. So they are implementing, and when the minister or the PS is with the DG. The DG is the chief technical officer of the minister.
Okay.
So he should have the basic knowledge of what the functions of that authority are, without reference to any other person, because he makes commitment.
So what happened? Did you make this clear to the Committee of Transport?
Yes.
Because in their report they say that after consultations, majority appear to support the idea to diversify the source of a Director General.
Yes, I'm not a member of the committee, so when you say majority, that's what we got. That's why we had to go back to the chair of the committee when he tabled that report before for the second reading. We made it clear to him that he's making a big mistake to say that the majority, because engineers in Kenya who made representation, who are the key stakeholders, are saying what the committee is presenting for second reading in Parliament is wrong. And we are very happy and we really support the decision of the chairman of that committee, Honorable David Posing, to say that, sorry, he was setting it aside for further consultations. And therefore, we're going to have those consultations, and we hope that it will become very clear, as I said earlier. The work of the committee is to put a law in place that is going to serve this country. And if we are saying what they're doing now with that proposal that was put before the second reading, it was going to be a big mistake. So as I said earlier, the work of these road authorities, they are implementing.
Okay.
And therefore the implementer must have technical knowledge. When the DG signs a contract, he cannot go and say, my engineer advised me. He has to take professional responsibility and therefore commit this country for what is value for money without reference to any other person. Assume you are now qualified for that position and you are appearing before a parliamentary committee who are asking you why there are potholes, as the engineer Wagai has said. What will be your answer? Because you know these are technical issues. To fill a pothole, you need to know the area of the pothole and the depth and the specifications that go into it. And the work of the DG is to ensure that the work that the country is implementing, the contracts that this country is implementing, have value for our money. And therefore he puts pen to paper and commits this country. So when you have someone who is not a professional in that field committing this country, then we are making a big mistake, because professionally, he does not even take any professional responsibility. Okay. He does not have a regulatory body which can discipline him, and therefore we shall be left on our own when mistakes are made. And, and now we have the real measurement to development for this country has been the infrastructure. Okay. So we are saying that the reforms that were carried out to devolve these functions from the chief engineer roads have been very useful. We have data that there are very many kilometers of roads that have been paved using this system. You can credit the president that he's actually delivered on the promise of infrastructure development. Every Kenyan, everywhere you go now, the country has been opened up. And these reforms are working. They are delivering a service to this country. So we don't know why now we are trying to fix what is not broken.
And Engineer Wangai, I see that the proposal of IEK is to have a registered professional engineer with the Engineers Board of Kenya, but also to have experience in the areas of highway, road or transportation engineering. So does that mean it wouldn't matter what engineering you studied? You could be an engineer of chemical and processing engineer, but worked in the road sector, then you can follow into that, or you have to be a civil engineering and such? Right.
I'll speak for Kenya, and I say that, of course, looking at the national registration and the sector policy, we also, as an organization, also further internalize this, and so we have our internal procedures. And I think for us, we require, because the road sector is a domain in the civil engineering, to be very specific. And I think it's important that we choose people who have qualifications and merit the position. And one of the things, therefore, that aware that the bulk of our work is in the road construction, therefore civil engineering, then we require that the person has a BSc in civil engineering. But let me also say this, that you know, I have had this argument that, for example, here National Hospital is a medical facility not manned by a doctor, or for that case, Kenya Airways, that's not manned by a pilot. But, you know, the difference that it makes with the road sector and this organization is that Kenya National Hospital, or Kenya, they are customer-oriented institutions. The bulk of the work actually is the interaction is to managing, you know, the customer interface and therefore the resultant revenues. For the road authority, I would almost say we are actually manufacturing roads. We are processing road every single day. That is the single most important duty of the CEO in this authority. Yes.
Right. I want us to move a little bit because time is running out, to talk about the state of roads in Kenya, because yes, as you say, there has been quite a bit of development if you're to stem back all the way from Kibaki era to now. But how do you rate our should I call them citizen contractors in terms of delivering on contracts that they have been awarded? And how do you compare that with these big projects, for instance, the expressway, if to talk about the Thika Road, if you to talk about some projects that happened in the Kakamega-Kisumu Road, have we reached that point that Kenyan contractors can be trusted with such huge projects?
I would say yes, not just now, because for a long time we've had Kenyan contractors who have been in this space. For example, I remember the road, you know, from Thika going towards Murang'a was done by, I think, HZ in the years 20, almost 30 years back. We've seen people like H. Young who did the road between Naivasha to Nakuru a couple of years back. And I mean, we have, and now they have done, for example, the road H. Young has done for us, the road between Lamu and Garsen, 113 kilometers, just got completed early this year. So first, let's say that yes, we have able team, but that does not mean that our interaction with the international community, our international expertise will end today or tomorrow, because there is usefulness, there is merit in trying to get what's the best in the space. However, I am told that there are more than 10,000 registered contractors. Probably, I don't know the number exactly, but maybe about 100 have this competence. The question then would be, what is the space for each of these 10,000? There are those that are able to play in the league of 10 billion shillings and above. There are those who can play in the 1 billion. There are those who need to work in the space of 10 billion. And that is the work that the National Concession Authority is given to examine the capacity of each contractor and regulate them and also classify them. So, and for us as an authority is something we are consciously promoting. We know that there is a law requiring the 40% local content, and we have reserved all contracts below 1 billion to local contractors, actually seasoned contractors, and we ensure that in all GOK financed contracts, 40% is taken up by local contractors by way of a joint venture.
And still with you, Engineer Wangai, because one of the complaints has been that, for instance, if you're to get, is it China Roads and Bridges Corporation to come and do, if it's SGR or to do the express highway, that they'll come, they have the financing probably from the banks in China or from the government of China, so they are easy when it comes to financing the delivery of service. But when you come to Kenya, there will be challenges on exchequer releases or when you receive the money for you to procure what you need. So there will also be delays in delivery of that service. What is the situation now, and how is KENHA dealing with this gap, especially for local contractors?
Thank you. One is to understand that we're talking about an enabling environment. Enabling environment has to do with the laws in place, but also the environment, the ecosystem within which people operate. And this goes beyond KENHA. Actually, as you say, a number of foreign contractors have access, may say cheaper financing access from their area or from the country of origin. And this goes to the banking sector. In fact, right now, we've been having conversation. I think we had a conversation recently with the Equity Bank. We're having a conversation now with Stanbic to say, what are the possibilities that you can actually continuously finance this work? Because cash flow may happen here and there. Secondly, for us as Kenya, there is, for example, in the maintenance area where we have reserved for assistance contractors, we actually pay that very promptly. Within 1 month or 2 weeks to 1 month of application, we do pay that. But we understand also truly that in the realm of development, sometimes there's a bit of delays. So let me say this, that enabling the work of local contractors goes beyond the road sector, but looks at the whole ecosystem. It's a capacity issue, and the capacity is not just about skills. It's about the technology available. It's about the financing options that are available, and this is what we are working on.
And Engineer Masalanga, as we went up on this, so what are the lessons you've learned, especially bearing in mind that there's been this complaint that our engineers, when they go to the university, I was at my university, so I interacted with some friends who are doing engineering, but they get out of the institution, they still don't have the hands-on experience, and they have so much to learn before they can really say that they are good to go. So what have we been doing to ensure there is skills transfer, especially with these big projects that we've seen, so that probably in 10 years to come, we can actually pull such big projects with our very own contractors?
Sorry, thank you, Sam. You know, the training of engineering, as I said earlier, is actually regulated also. So we have a regulatory body. I know there was the court ruling that said the Commission of University Education is the one that can only accredit programs. But the Engineers Board of Kenya is working closely with the Commission of University Education to ensure that whatever is being taught in our local universities meets some basic standards, so that whoever is graduating from our local universities can be integrated. But you see, you cannot learn everything at the university. So we like to put a system in place where these students that are graduating from engineering courses are able to get into an internship program. So they should get opportunities in the various projects that are ongoing to be able to get the sufficient training. And the law requires that you need to get 3 years internship training before you can transition to be a professional engineer. And we as an engineering fraternity are very happy with what Chairman Kenha and what the Kenya National Highways Authority is doing. They are now trying to ensure that in all their projects, they have some space where they take on students for training to ensure that they are able to take them through due process.
Okay.
Yes, but on the issue that we talked about of local capacity, yes, you know, it's a bit of a challenge, as you said, you know, this public-private partnership, because these projects come, as you said, with the design and, as you said, with funding. And we as a country probably don't now benefit from the transfer of knowledge in the design, which we should also be pushing for, because we cannot forever rely on foreigners to develop our country. This country has to be developed by us. So we have to train local capacity. There is a law that requires, as Engineer Wangai has said, that all projects below a certain threshold are reserved for local contractors.
Right.
We should also say that all projects are then also reserved for local consultants, because the students, some of them will become contractors, but many of them will remain professionals in consultancy.
Right.
So they need to be given a space to develop the skills that they have acquired at the universities, so that they are able to provide this service to the country. And we need to develop that critical mass as an engineering fraternity. We are way below the world standards of the number of an engineer to a certain amount of population. And we haven't reached that, even the 50% threshold. So we need to encourage many students to go for engineering courses. We as a country are at a very low level of infrastructure development. And if we put systems in place, if we try to kill, probably the challenge would be that what incentive do we need to give to these people to be able to do engineering. And the only assurance we can give them is that there is ready job. There is need for your service.
That's a very interesting conversation, because just last week IBC's tender for election technology was nullified by the Public Procurement Administrative Review Board on the basis that it did not reserve 75% of employment opportunities for local citizens.
Yes.
And also did not reserve 40% of the content for Kenya. So we will continue with this in coming days. Let's take a look at some of the things that the Kenyans have been saying on Twitter. Abdirahman Ali, you say that I agree the position should be given to other learned Kenyans who said engineers are the only who can perform miracles on our roads. Administratively, it is not about engineering, it's about management and perfection. Engineers can be hired anyway. Let us speed up the legislation. Well, Asiagi, you say the DG for health is a medical practitioner. Why should it be different for the engineers? It is not sensible to have an outsider leading a team of professionals. Then viewer, who doesn't give us their name, why are the EBK, Engineers Board of Kenya, and other state institutions so keen to exclude KETRB in this topic? Their approach on policy is elitist and has resulted in the status quo where technology and engineering is hardly developing or meeting the expectations. Remember, KETRB was formed by an act of parliament just as any of the others. Well, Elema, Abdi, I just support and appreciate the work of Kenha. Well, you have found the engineer Wangai, the chairperson of the Kenya National Highways Authority, engineer Daniel Matalanga, the president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. It's refreshing to listen to the professionals, and we will do that in the coming days more and more. And that's our time with the engineers. But up next, we speak to the governor of Kirinyaga, Anne Waiguru. She comes to speak about several matters, including what's affecting the nation, politics in the mountain, and devolution par excellence, looking at the scorecard, what's working, what's not working, and the future of this. And we'll be doing that after a short break. Stay tuned. Text in your views to 2422 or tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya at Sam Gituku. The hashtag to use is Daybreak. We're back shortly.